The new high school was officially dedicated, as was the school's gymnasium and its natatorium, giving Lake Orion its first community pool.
Melanie Purcell was hired on as the village manager. Lloyd Coe and Carl Sarowski were elected to the village council. Tom Stauffer and Howard Sherman filled vacancies on the school board, and longtime school board member Mildred Williams retires.
As the Lake Orion landmark is demolished, the school district breaks ground on a brand new elementary school and nature center.
And Great Lakes Crossing in Auburn Hills officially opened its doors to the public with all the fanfare of a major holiday.
Happy New Year, I'm Joe Johnson.
And I'm Kim Menzel.
Those were just some of the stories that helped shape Lake Orion in 1998.
We'll have those stories and more coming up on News 65, The Year in Review.
From the OCTV studio in Lake Orion, this is News 65 with Joe Johnson and Kim Menzel, bringing you state, county, and local news affecting residents in Lake Orion and Orion Township.
On January 11th, residents were invited to attend the open house of the brand new Gingiville Community Center located on Walden, just east of Joslin. The building and the land it sits on were given to the Community Center Board in exchange for the land on Baldwin Road the original Community Center sat on. The 6-year-old building was eventually demolished. Following the resignation of school board member Kathy Salina, the Board of Education voted to appoint Lori St. Germain to fill Salina's seat until the next school election 6 months away. Her first meeting was on January 14th. A financial analyst with EDS, St. Germain had previously been employed by the district as the service learning coordinator.
It's a very big time for the district. There's a lot more people moving in. There's people of different socioeconomic groups, different cultures moving in. I think all of this needs to be addressed by a school district, which ours is addressing many of the issues and will need to continue. I have 2 children in the district, and I just want to make sure that things are progressing well for their education.
On January 21st, Lake Orion High School hosted a meeting of the Oakland County School Boards Association. Following their regular meeting, the association presented their first ever Lifetime Achievement Award. The award went to Lake Orion School Board member Mildred Williams. Williams began teaching when she was 18 years old and was elected to the Lake Orion School Board in 1978.
I always loved school, loved going to school. My parents had both been teachers, briefly, not for a long time, but they had both taught. And I just always loved school and loved everything involved with it. Played school when I was little and kept on playing.
In January, we visited CJ's Restaurant. The restaurant opened its doors a month after Margie's Restaurant closed its doors after 18 years in the village. CJ's was opened by a former employee of Margie's, Joan Gall, and her boyfriend, Carl Slemczynski. Carl and Joan put the C and J in CJ's. Another former employee, Colleen Winowiski, was hired to manage the restaurant.
Wonderful things.
On Thursday, February 15th, Governor John Engler visited the Blue Ribbon School, Pine Tree Elementary, as part of a tour following his State of the State address. At an assembly in the school's media center, Engler presented 3 blue ribbons, one to Superintendent of the Year Robert Bass, one to 3rd grade teacher Judy Ross for her use of technology in the classroom, and 1 blue ribbon went to school principal Beverly Tepper. After answering questions from students, the governor then went on a tour of the school.
Well, I think this is exactly what a great school ought to look like. I mean, you've got everybody involved, from the entire faculty and staff to the kids and the parents, and it's just a wonderful role model, and it's easy to see why this is a highly acclaimed school, and you can see it in the dedication and the commitment of the staff and the innovation. It's just obvious everywhere.
I'm very proud of the kids. The kids were not prompted at all. They came up with some of those questions, and we're going, whoa, and he didn't expect them, and I didn't expect them, and it was great. And what really impressed me is that Governor Engler just selected some children that he wanted to answer some questions for, and I didn't realize he'd give that much time to it. So he really did give time to the children, and it was great. I'm very proud of the kids.
On Saturday, February 7th, Orion Community Television recognized the best in public access television with its Volunteer Appreciation Banquet. Awards were handed out in a number of categories. Special recognition was given to the high school news program Dragon Digest, having been on the air 10 years. The program Santa Live was also recognized for its 10-year run. And receiving the award for Volunteer of the Year was Kathy Wieland, producer of the Church Street Singers series of sing-alongs and numerous band and choir concerts. For the third year in a row, the Chamber of Commerce hosted the Lake Orion Winter Carnival. A variety of events were scheduled on February 13th, 14th, and 15th, but many of them were canceled due to the spring-like weather preceding the weekend. Temperatures dropped on Saturday evening, affecting the turnout of spectators gathered around the lake for a fireworks show. Those braving the cold enjoyed a pretty impressive display.
Because of the cold weather, it tightens the guns up. In the summertime, the guns expand for us, so it works a lot better that way.
Is there any precautions you need to take in winter as opposed to summer?
Basically, just do it the same way as what we did tonight for this show.
That same weekend, visitors at Canterbury Village were treated to an ice carving exhibition. In its 5th year, the event has become a tradition residents have come to anticipate and enjoy. A small number of sculptors carved out more than 160 works over the weekend, including this enormous ice castle constructed by Gary Elzerman and team. On February 17th, the Lake Orion Village Council held a special meeting to look at the resumes of applicants interested in replacing outgoing village manager John Birchtold. After a number of attempts, the board agreed to invite 3 candidates back for interviews. The job would eventually be offered to Melanie Purcell. On Monday, February 23rd, just prior to the start of the varsity volleyball game against Seaholm, members of the school board and representatives of the district gathered on the newly completed floor of the high school's new gymnasium. Months of construction delays were quickly forgotten as visitors took in the beautiful new facility. Members of the high school's volleyball squads received pins commemorating a special moment in the district's history.
More than 6 months after the start of the 97-98 school year, members of the community were invited to take part in the official dedication ceremony of the new high school. On Sunday, March 8th, representatives of the district went before the crowd to reflect back upon the project and to look forward to the impact the new school would have on students. During the ceremony, Jeff Nelson and April Jubelt performed a selection from West Side Story, the school's spring musical. Later, representatives of the architectural firm URS Greiner Incorporated and the construction company Barton Mallow were on stage to present School Board President Tony Rothschild with the keys to the building. Following the ceremony, Assistant Superintendent Leroy Mayberry cut a ceremonial ribbon, officially inviting the public into the school.
We wanted to have a lot of the building open so that people could see it. And we knew the pool wouldn't be done till Memorial Day weekend. We didn't want to wait for that. But as soon as the field house and the auditorium opened was when we wanted to do the whole building dedication. And I feel now that the celebration feels good because we can now look at, here's what it was all for. Here's the fruits of our labor. And I am so thrilled to have so many community members here, excited about it. Students have been excited since they came in, so that's been great. But to see their families now come in and feel the way we do about it is just, it's a marvelous moment. It's the best moment of my career ever, of all my life.
On Monday, March 9th, Lake Orion voters went to the polls to fill 4 seats on the village council. 8 candidates were on the ballot. 4 of them were incumbents. Receiving the most votes was incumbent Charles Veers with 161. Village businessman Lloyd Coe received 158 votes. Chamber of Commerce President Carl Sorowski received 155, tying incumbent Douglas Stendel. Just 1 week after the village election, voters were asked to go to the polls again to decide the fate of a school bond proposal. Parents, teachers, and administrators gathered at the administration building to see the results come in. The proposal was passed in all of Lake Orion's districts. The bond would allow the district to erect a new elementary school and a new nature center, renovate existing schools, purchase new technology and buses, and develop and improve playgrounds, outdoor physical education, and athletic fields. For the 2nd year in a row, Rochester Adams High School hosted Odyssey of the Mines regional competition, and as usual, Lake Orion teams excelled. 170 teams representing Region 12 competed on March 14th. Teams finishing 1st and 2nd in various problems advanced to state competition. The Lake Orion schools that advanced included Scripps Middle School's Morph Magic Division II team, St. Joseph School's Marvelous Mentor Division I West team, Lake Orion High School's Marvelous Mentor Division III team, Scripps Middle School's Create and Animate Division II team, and Orion Oaks Camouflage Creation Division I team. That same day, the Orion Township Public Library hosted their annual Battle of the Books. Teams represented all of Lake Orion's elementary schools, including St. Joseph School, and for the first time, children that are homeschooled. The children were tested on their knowledge of 10 books. Weber Elementary took sole possession of the lead late in the game and was declared the winner, but then controversy. The decision was challenged by other teams, and Pine Tree Elementary's score was changed, creating a tie. But then Weber received 3 additional points, and after about 20 minutes of challenges, Weber was again crowned the winner. The 4 candidates elected to the Village Council on March 9th were sworn in during the council meeting on March 23rd. Chuck Veers and Lloyd Coe, being the 2 highest vote getters, each began 2-year terms. And since Carl Sorowski and Doug Dendel received the same number of votes, Sorowski's name was drawn from a hat to net him a 2-year term. Dendel received a 1-year term. Sorowski was then elected by a vote of 4-3 to serve as village president, replacing Harry Stephen.
New village manager Melanie Purcell began her duties on April 20th. Outgoing manager John Birchtold was there to get her acclimated to her new surroundings. Purcell came to Michigan from Nebraska. She worked as a consultant for Hillsdale, Michigan, and a few private businesses before coming to Lake Orion.
Well, I'm excited. We have friends in the area. We have, my husband is from Michigan. He's actually born and raised in Flint, so we have plenty of connections to this area, and we figured it would be a great opportunity to put down some roots and find a home.
On her first day on the job, she talked about her short-term agenda.
Well, my agenda right now is I'm just trying to get my feet wet and find out all the information I can. I'm doing a lot of work on the budget. Obviously, we're smack dab in the middle of that and trying to get it presented. I want to meet with those committees, talk to council people individually, talk to the council as a group. Next week, I'm hoping to start meeting people. That's pretty much high on my list, as I really want to start meeting people and hearing what their ideas are, what their vision is for the community itself.
John Birchtold left the village on May 8th to begin his new job as manager for the city of Charlotte, Michigan, a city with a population of 8,000. He began his stint as Lake Orion's village manager in August of 1987. 11 years later, he reflected on his accomplishments.
I think most recently helping to get the bond issue passed for water and sewer improvements, and then looking around the community, street lights and bridge replacements and sidewalk replacements, downtown improvements and activities. I think, on the infrastructure side, they're the type of improvements that I would name. And then on the softer side, I've had a chance to work with some really dedicated council people, 3 really good village presidents, Ted Cole, Harry Stephen, and Bill Gruby. These are fine gentlemen, people that I'll consider to be my friends the rest of my life.
He also talked about what he will miss about the village.
It's a great place. I've spent a lot of time here, walking the community. I used to get up early in the morning and spend 45 minutes to an hour walking. Met a lot of lifelong friends. Again, some of the same comments I'd have about the 3 council presidents, I'd also would indicate those comments are true about the residents. This is a great place to live, great location. It's one of the best small towns in southeast Michigan.
Also in April, the Oakland Press announced that the Bay Mills Indian Tribe had withdrawn its request to build a casino in Auburn Hills. That announcement came as a pleasant surprise to Bev Luther, who headed up the organization Citizens Against the Auburn Hills Casino.
It's not that we have anything against the Indians or anything like that. It was just we did not want this particular casino in that particular location. And also we were very, 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 very opposed to the way they were obtaining the land over there, which was, as Governor Engler called it, a very dubious land swap. And we thought we just have to go ahead and do the best we can.
In April, we did a story on one neighborhood's attempt to preserve a parcel of land known as Hemingway's Plat. The plat had remained relatively untouched since President John Adams passed it on to Philip Figler in 1833, who in turn passed it on to Needham Hemingway. Residents living near the wooded area had been assured the land was undevelopable, but construction on a new subdivision threatened the land.
The plan for this area here is a detention pond which will collect waters from about half of the 130 homes that Robertson is building. It'll take that water untreated and dump it into Long Lake, which is the headwater to an entire ecosystem of lakes and streams which pass through Bald Mountain State Recreation Area. And that's our largest concern.
Since the story aired, less than 1 acre of wetlands is all that remains of the property. Hoping the sun would shine down on the township's second annual Dragon Dash, organizers instead got April showers. On April 26th, about 90 or so walkers and runners gathered at the Civic Center grounds for the start of the Dragon Dash. The event kicked off with a 1-mile youth run followed by an 8K run that took runners through nearby subdivisions. And finally, a group of walkers representing the GM Orion Assembly Plant took part in Walk America, benefiting the March of Dimes. In contrast to the rash of shootings across America involving school children, Orion Area Youth Assistance hosted its 4th annual Youth Recognition Banquet on Thursday, April 30th. 56 young people from a variety of grade levels were called up to receive a certificate of appreciation, 20 more than the previous year. Nominated by their schools and community groups, each recipient met specific requirements for eligibility.
They're nominated by local service groups, government, school organizations, and the kids have done things above and beyond just academics or athletics or student government. They're going above and beyond the call, putting their own time in with Special Olympics, helping those athletes. They're working on education in the substance abuse area, and a full array of, we've had kids that have traveled outside of the country, helping low economic areas, and some kids that have raised a tremendous amount of funds for special causes like different health concerns.
Hundreds of walkers gathered at the Oxford United Methodist Church on the afternoon of Sunday, May 2nd for the start of 1998's Crop Walk. The event brings together members of a number of area churches to raise funds for the world's hungry. Volunteers from Orion Oxford Fish helped out along the way. Fish is one of the beneficiaries of the walk. Money raised helps pay rent and utilities for less fortunate local families. The walk came to an end at Lake Orion's United Methodist Church. On May 6th, the talents of Lake Orion students were put on display during the Student Spectacular and Spotlight on Technology. For the first time, the annual events were held at the high school. The artwork of students ranging from K through 12 were on display in the Commons area as the musical talent of students were showcased in the auditorium. And throughout the high school, students demonstrated a proficiency on computers, creating music and art. The high school's award-winning electric cars were on display as well. On May 13th, Melanie Olds was hired by the school board to serve as principal of Orion Oaks Elementary. Olds replaced Chris Lehman, who moved into an assistant position within the district's administrative offices.
I was interested in making that move because I had been studying administration. I already had my master's degree and decided that that was a move that I would be willing to make. I have every admiration for Chris Lehman and her administrative role in the district, and I have high admiration for all of our administrators in our district. I also grew up here as a young girl, so I know a lot of administrators that came in and left. And I have a lot of admiration for what's going on at this time.
In May, a request to close down the streets of the village for a motorcycle show was rejected by the village council after business owners in the village voiced their opposition. Tim Egress of the Keep Coming Back Club requested the street closure. Ron Jedlicki, owner of Hook, Line, and Sinker right across the street, led the opposition. Pine Tree Elementary School celebrated its 25th anniversary with a special event at the school that allowed visitors to travel through time. The themed open house included displays like a live wax museum, a time machine, and displays like this dinosaur diorama created by first graders. State Senator Matt Danaskis was on hand to recognize the 5 teachers that have been with the school since the beginning. On May 27th, the Lake Orion Board of Education's study session went out live to cable subscribers for the first time ever, joining the ranks of Township Board and Village Council meetings. The meeting went out on Channel 66, the education channel, with equipment provided by the Orion Cable Commission. Volunteers operate the equipment, including Larry DeRicki, a member of the Cable Commission and the person instrumental in making it all happen.
Well, we think the televising the school board meetings is going to be another step in community service and keeping everybody informed of what's going on by their representatives. We've started out with the village and the township. That seemed to be well accepted, but yet the school board activities and that were always something that was, a lot of people didn't bother with. Now all of a sudden it's available to them, and we're looking forward to providing a good sense of what's going on. I'm sure if it follows the pattern of the others, a lot of more people will be watching it, a lot more people will be asking questions, and a lot more people will be interested in it simply because it's available to them.
Rainy weather may have ruined barbecues and picnics Memorial Day weekend, but ceremonies to remember those who have died during times of war went on despite the weather. Following ceremonies at East Lawn Cemetery and Children's Park, a parade proceeded down Broadway Street in the village. Later, a flag-raising ceremony was held on the grounds of the yet-to-be-completed Veterans Memorial Park on M24. Dr. Joseph Master Mateo was the master of ceremonies. The doctor is spearheading the campaign to get the park completed. And finally, the friends and family of Mame Rouge mourned her passing on May 16th at the age of 71. We here at News 65 had the pleasure of meeting Mame in May of 1997 when she was named Employee of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce. She was an employee of the township for 25 years before retiring in 1997.
It was really quite a surprise and an honor to be chosen the Employee of the Year. I have worked, for 25 going on 26 years here at the Orion Township. Really enjoyed my work. Have worked with people from the homeowners to like GM, one of the biggest. We have a lot of developers. I've worked with them through the planning stage. Also have issued all the building permits. When GM came in, I was responsible for all the building permits there, which was a really big job. And all the new houses that we've had. One year we had, in 1982, we had 9 houses all year. And last year we had over 500. So you can see how much has happened in Orion Township.
June 1st marked the beginning of another season of Cruise Night in the village. An event started by the owners of Oldie's Ice Cream was taken over 3 years ago by the Lions Club. Owners of classic cars were invited to show them off every Monday night through Labor Day. On Saturday, June 6th, volunteers spent the afternoon cleaning up Blanche Sims Elementary School as part of the United Way's Day of Caring Goes to School. Throughout Oakland County, volunteers spruced up 8 schools in various communities. Volunteers representing Lake Orion parents, teachers, and students gathered at Blanche Sims to trim hedges, pull weeds, and plant flowers. On Monday, June 8th, voters were asked to fill 2 4-year terms and 1 2-year term on the Lake Orion Board of Education. Incumbent D.R.C. Gonzalez received the most votes, 1,170, earning him another 4-year term. The second 4-year term went to newcomer Tom Stoffer, who received 911 votes. The 2-year term went to Howard Sherman. Though a new board member, Sherman was no stranger to board meetings, having been present at many meetings over the years. On the Wednesday following the election, the school board held their last meeting of the school year. But before the meeting got underway, a reception was held to honor the retiring Mildred Williams. Board President Tony Rothschild presented Williams a gold watch on behalf of the school board. She also received a beautiful tapestry from members of the Lake Orion Education Association. Following the reception, Williams' final board meeting got underway. The meeting was also the last for Lori St. Germain, who was not reelected after serving 6 months. She was appointed to the board in January following the resignation of Kathy Salina. The meeting wrapped up with closing comments from Mildred Williams.
In general, we've been accused of being, just recently, we've been accused a lot of being just yes men and not thinking for ourselves and all that sort of thing. But that's not the board I know. The board that I know is a board of very definite opinions that they don't hesitate to express. And we don't always agree. A number of times we do because we work together so long and people know what they can propose that will be acceptable to the group. You learn that after a while. You don't throw something out that you know everybody's going to kick around and say no. But what we have learned is to talk things over and to compromise and to come to some kind of conclusion that we can almost all buy. We have some votes that will have 1 nay, some with a couple. But on major issues, we've been able over the years, and this is with a lot of changing people, that you work with. There have only been a couple that were really holdouts because they wanted to really throw things over and change, and they discovered it wasn't going to work because what they wanted to do was not what the community wanted and not what would be good for the schools. And I usually talk too much, and I'm talking too much now, but it's the last chance I'll get.
No, you can come.
I'll come sit there. I will.
Right.
I will.
Public participation.
But I thank you all. I've enjoyed this board immensely, and the administration has been just great. And the people in the community are wonderful. And I hope you're as proud of your schools as you ought to be.
On Friday, June 12th, the first class to graduate from the new high school gathered at Meadowbrook Music Festival for the high school's commencement ceremony. 334 seniors attended the event, filled with emotional speeches and fantastic performances by members of the high school's choral and locomotion.
Okay, soon-to-be graduates, could you please rise? Please take the tassel and move it to the left side. Congratulations, class of 1998.
Later that day, graduates were invited to spend one last evening in the high school. For 17 years, parents of LOHS seniors have gotten together to organize the all-night party, an evening of fun and entertainment that provides a safe environment in which graduates can celebrate the end of their high school years. 260 students took part in the event that lasted until 6 a.m. On Wednesday, June 24th, Dancing in the Streets began its second season when Broadway was closed down from Flint to Front Street and a live band set up to provide the entertainment. Local families enjoyed music and fun when the band The Shadows braved the threatening skies to perform a mix of pop songs and oldies. Different bands performed every other Wednesday through September 2nd. On Sunday, June 28th, former township board members joined current ones to dedicate Friendship Park. The ceremony was led by Parks and Rec Director Rock Blanchard, who was hired just weeks before the park's groundbreaking.
I think it will fill a void of, already we're getting all kinds of calls. When are the baseball fields going to be ready for use? People saying, well, gee, you don't have any tennis courts in the township, and tennis courts are part of the plan out here. Basketball courts, somebody mentioned that. So there's a lot of needs already. The more this township grows, there'll be even more needs. I think someday we're going to need another piece of property so we can put some more park land on it.
Though there was still some work to be done, the park had been drawing crowds since May of 1997, when work on the playground project was completed. Doug Brown was township supervisor when the park broke ground in 1996. Al Barnes sat on the board. Both were present at the dedication.
Yeah, I seen the opportunity to get the property, and we went ahead and got it. It totals 135 acres altogether. And if we wouldn't have got it when we did, we probably wouldn't have had it. It would have been houses here or maybe a golf course here.
What do you think this park means to this community?
Well, it brings everybody together from the youngest to the oldest. Eventually, there's going to be a place on the north end where you can watch birds and animals and stuff for older people. And then, of course, we all have the recreation facilities here on the south end. It was planned in about 4 or 5 phases, so there's quite a ways to go yet, but at least we have the property to expand it to the 135 full acres.
Well, I think it means a new place for people to go and relax, bring their children, have a good time. And as I say, saving it from being built up is probably the biggest motivation we had in preserving the area.
What's going through your head now as you look around and see it near completion?
Well, I'm happy to see it. There's a long way to go. Lots more we can do here. And I think if the community gets behind it, well, we can really build it into something even better than it is already.
On Friday, July 3rd, people from surrounding communities came to Lake Orion in droves to get a good spot near the lake for the annual Fireworks Spectacular. Once again, dedicated volunteers put on the memorable show. Each year, thousands of dollars are raised by volunteers to make the show possible.
We definitely try to make a difference. As a matter of fact, I'm holding a list here, and I really don't want to read the whole thing, but boy, we have got a ton of different things. We've got 85 new threes that are imported. We've got stickless rockets. We've got cross sets, green strobes, mambas, gold palms with colored tips, ruby and silver whistles, exploding turbulins, red strobes, spider comets, assorted and fancy American 30-shot rocks. I don't know, we've got them all. We're going to see what happens.
At 10 p.m., under a slight drizzle, the first fuse was lit. As the show progressed, the rain got heavier, but the crowd seemed determined to catch the whole show. Just as the finale came to an end, the rain started coming down in buckets, forcing the crowd to make a mad dash for their cars. Participants braved yet another day of poor weather on the 4th of July to take part in the annual Venetian Boat Parade. Organized by the Lake Orion Boat Club and Orion Township Parks and Recreation, boats began to arrive at the boat club at 11 a.m. to begin their trek around the perimeter of the lake. Participants were asked to take part in a Disney theme, and awards were handed out in various categories. The award for Best Antique went to Robert Hickey. The award for Best Entry taking part in the theme went to Patrick McKevely and his crew. The Best Entry by Youth award went to Lori Arthod and her band of pirates. The award for Best Overall was given to the Sorgatz family's entry. And the Commodore's Award for the Best Entry by a Business went to Century 21 Sorowski & Associates. Sorowski, his staff, and their children dressed up as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Oh, I tell you, Joe, this is something else. You know, the weather we had today was horrible, but, you know, look at the turnout that we had. And even around the lake, at least it wasn't freezing cold like last year. But, you know, I'm really proud of the kids. You know, we had Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and the Seven Dwarfs were just wonderful most of the way around.
Throughout the 4th of July weekend, the heart of the village was once again closed down so that Pew Shows could return to set up the rides and games that make up the Lions Club's Jubilee. There were a few new attractions in addition to the ones residents have grown used to over the last few years. Each year, the Jubilee acts as a fundraiser for the Lake Orion Lions Club, who distributes the money raised to local organizations, focusing on those benefiting the visually impaired. On Wednesday, July 8th, the Lake Orion Board of Education met for the first meeting of the 98-99 school year. Prior to the start of the meeting, the board's two newcomers, Tom Stauffer and Howard Sherman, along with fellow victorious candidate D'Arcy Gonzalez, took the oath of office. Following the swearing-in ceremony, the board elected new officers. Richard White was elected by his peers to serve as board president, replacing four-year president Tony Rothschild. Stauffer was elected vice president, Rothschild was elected secretary, and Gonzalez was elected treasurer. Among items on the agenda, Superintendent of Personnel Richard Cass introduced Jim Wood to the board. Wood was selected by a committee as the leading candidate for the position of athletic director, officially vacated by Darren Abbasi on June 30th. Wood is a 25-year veteran of the Lake Orion School District.
One thing that convinced me that this was the position for me was the person that I was following and the leadership he'd given. I was really looking forward to that in the staff and the parents and the kids that are in the area. The parents and the kids really haven't changed a lot, and I've always been confident of that. The staff has changed a little bit, and I hate to say this a little bit, but I've coached some of them or former students, but I am looking forward to that. So I am looking forward to your support and working with you to help this athletic program go forward. Because one of my points is I don't look at this as extracurricular. I look at this as co-curricular because it's a learning experience for anyone that's involved in our athletic program. It's to better them as a person.
On July 23rd, Ed's Excavating began the demolition of the Bellevue Bridge, built in 1924. Attempts were made to save the historic Camelback Bridge over the last few years, but its deteriorating condition made it impossible to save. The recently completed new bridge allows more clearance for boats to pass underneath and is longer, preventing cars from bottoming out as they cross it. On July 26, dignitaries gathered at the Orion Oaks County Park to celebrate the completion of the last major link in Orion Township's safety paths. With the exception of a few minor areas, bikers and rollerbladers were now able to travel from Gingiville to the village using safety paths and even hook up to the Pink Creek Trail. The stretch of path along Joslyn near Orion Oaks Park was the last major link in the project's 10-year master plan.
Well, I wish my daughter was here. She's almost 23, and basically she was 3 years old, and I tried to take her biking, and it was sort of impossible since there was no safe place to go when she was little. So I'm pretty excited. Yeah, and it's been great because so many people have helped make this happen. Yep.
What does this path mean to the community, do you think?
Oh, I think it's going to help this community be a community, help it communicate better, help people get from one side to the other and become neighbors across the entire, township. I think that's going to just be a real asset because we've got so many neighborhoods now, but I think people really, really are looking forward to being able to get to know each other all over the township.
The August 4th primary election narrowed down the field of candidates that would move on to November's general election. Voters determined that Engler and Feiger would go head-to-head in November. Matt Danaskis went on to represent his party, defeating challenger Tom Middleton. Democrat Michael Odette defeated David Liliths. And in a close race to represent the 45th district in the state legislature, Mike Bishop barely eked out a victory over Joanne Van Tassel. The race was so close the Orion Review proclaimed Van Tassel the winner. Former Orion Township Supervisor Doug Brown lost out in his bid to dethrone County Commissioner Larry Obrecht. Orion voters also overwhelmingly supported a renewal of the safety path millage with 2,486 yes votes to 1,588 no votes. On August 16th, we visited the Michigan Renaissance Festival during its opening weekend. Its series of themed weekends got underway with Legends and Lore, featuring TGI Friday's International Strongman competition. We talked to some of the participants made famous by rolling cars over on ESPN, like the four-time world's strongest man, Magnus Verb Magnusson.
Well, strongman competitions is like a combine. You're testing strength, endurance, and explosives. So the best athlete comes out as winner. Bodybuilder looks to train his muscles and gets his physique good. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's strong. But strongman only looks for getting stronger, faster, more explosive, and that doesn't necessarily mean that your muscles get that big. You just train, your ligaments get stronger, tendons and all that also.
When Orion Township trustee Sandra Dill accepted the position of deputy supervisor in July, the township board had 45 days to fill her vacancy. Late into the evening of August 17th, the board reached the portion of their agenda where they would appoint a new trustee. After splitting the vote 3-3 on two candidates, the board turned to a straw poll, awarding points for first, second, and third place nominees. Former township trustee Burke Cooney received the most points, 11, followed by Morris Cuxey's 9 points. The board then appointed Cooney by a vote of 4-3. Cooney had served on the board before, from 1992 to 1996, when he chose not to run for re-election. In August, we visited Uncle Buck's restaurant. When the restaurant formerly known as Vanelli's went up for sale in 1997, Michael and Shirley Piontek bought it and renovated it, opening it as Uncle Buck's in May.
Well, everything was repainted and carpeted in the bar area, and the hallway was completely refaced with individual half-log kind of wood, and that was all put up by hand. And other than that, painting, wallpaper, changing the carpeting, like I said, and new artwork kind of thing, new theme.
Each room seems to have a different characteristic. What were you guys kind of going for?
Well, we are, it is Uncle Buck's kind of a cabin thing. This is kind of ended up being more of a southwestern kind of room. We have another room that has murals painted all over the walls. That was painted by Marcy McKinnon, and she lives in Lake Orion, I'm pretty sure. And she did all the painting in there. And then in the other rooms, we just have kind of just looking for, we have different artifacts, odds and ends, antique things. A lot of people donated them to us, and so we're still filling up wall space at this point.
The Piontek struggled to get a liquor license all year long. They finally received one on December 18th. Monday, August 24th was the first day of school in the Lake Orion School District. We visited the high school to see how things were coming along. Compare this shot of the school's entrance to this one shot on the first day of school in 1997. What a difference a year makes. Over 1,600 students were enrolled for the start of the 98-99 school year, about 150 more than the previous year, according to Principal Leslie Thurjung.
This is sort of the normal life beginning of the school year, and students are excited teachers are excited and things are functioning that are supposed to be functioning. The building is complete. There's not mud and fences and construction zones and hard hats and 200 workers running around that we're trying to accommodate. So I think it was business as usual, and I feel really good about the fact that probably 97% of the students were in class at 7:42 and got to meet their first period teachers and got business underway.
We also peeked into the high school's natatorium. The not-quite Olympic-sized pool was filled with water, but there was still plenty of work to be done. On August 30th, finalists from the Lions Club week-long hole-in-one contest assembled at Willow Creek Golf for a shot at the grand prize, a $300,000 home. Among the 33 qualifiers, no one sank the hole-in-one, but Bob Carbone of Ortonville put his ball 8 feet 1/4 inch from the hole.
Get him! Get it! Come on, baby, one time.
Oh, that looks good. Oh, wow.
Oh, rolled right past. Great shot, Bob.
Carbone won 4 days at a condo in Tennessee for 4 people, plus free rounds of golf.
The Lake Orion Dragons varsity football team had their home opener on September 11th, hosting Southfield Lathrop. Under the direction of new head coach Chris Bell, the Dragons soundly defeated the Chargers 42-0. Touchdowns came from junior Zach Kesey and seniors Adam Eldridge, Steve Sargent, Dave McKay, and Tim Klaus, who returned an interception 15 yards for the Dragons' final TD of the game. The win gave the Dragons a 2-0 record. Their only loss of the season would come the following week against the Troy Colts. On Tuesday, September 15th, members of the Orion Interagency Council were treated to a tour of the old high school, now known as the Community Education Resource Center. Director of Community Education Lisa Sokol led the tour of the building, which has undergone major restoration, including a new coat of paint, new ceiling tiles, carpeting, and new technology. About 90 to 95% of the building is being used by the district to offer residents a wide variety of programs formerly housed at the Eamon Center. During the weekend of September 19th, residents of Lake Orion were invited to celebrate their heritage. Originating as a small event 4 years ago, Heritage Days has evolved into one of the community's major events of the year. Flint and Broadway streets in the village were closed down to allow vendors to set up booths to sell crafts, food, and other wares. There were games and activities for children and entertainment for the whole family.
We've had a lot of involvement from the different community groups. The American Legion's help. The Cub Scouts were down here this morning helping us clean up. The Walden and Scripps Middle School and the cheerleaders have been operating a lot of the rides for us. So it's really came together nice, and we've got all kinds of crafters down here, probably twice as many as last year.
Coinciding with Heritage Days, 7 homes on the lake were opened up to the public, most within walking distance from Greens Park, where the tour began. Stops on the tour included the Darling Cottage, constructed in the 1880s, the Venice Cottage, built sometime between 1906 and 1912, Simmons Point, where Jim and Lisa Cummins built their dream house on the original foundation of the previous house, the cottages of Milner Court, built by the hand of Peter Alexander Milner, who ran Park Island Amusement Park in the early 1900s, the Sibley Cottage, built in the early 1900s, Point Comfort, completed in 1901, and the Ryle Cottage, built in the 1920s and currently owned by Jim Ingram, a member of the Orion Historical Society.
At 5 o'clock on Friday, October 2nd, an unusually large crowd lined the streets in the village to enjoy Lake Orion High School's homecoming parade. There was a slight change in the route. The parade made a left turn at Flint Street instead of continuing down Broadway, forcing spectators to relocate just prior to the start of the parade. Making up the parade were Lake Orion's bands, the homecoming court, and various community groups. The high school sports teams were represented, including the first time ever Lake Orion swimming and diving teams. The theme of the parade was New York at Night, and it looked as though the movie Godzilla heavily influenced all the floats. Later during halftime of the football game, the homecoming court was introduced to the crowd. 1997's King and Queen Casey Walker and Lauren Kesey returned to crown the 98 King and Queen. After a bit of suspense, the crowns were placed atop the heads of Leah Dubé and Jared Jeffers. The Dragons hosted the Rochester Falcons on homecoming. Usually when these two teams get together, the game is a nail-biter, but not this time. Up 14-0, the Dragons' Mike Crawford takes a pass from Darren Tooley 75 yards in for the touchdown. Crawford even kicked the extra point. Then with 9 minutes left in the third, Crawford came up with an interception and returned it 45 yards for the Dragons' final TD of the evening. The final was 27-0.
Push on, away, chest, and go in to win. Push on, away, chest, and fight. They were indeed keep you in the lead. Push on for victory. Come rise for the hope. For the letters and light. We know you're the best. Push on for victory.
On October 3rd, the American Heart Association's North Oakland Division held their third annual Heart Walk at Bald Mountain Recreation Area. About 350 walkers showed up on a rainy Saturday morning to walk the 2.8-mile route. Since pledges were raised ahead of time, the weather didn't affect the total amount raised by the event, and as a matter of fact, was up over 97's total. On October 9th, hundreds of students gathered at the high school's athletic field for the start of the 24-hour Relay Challenge. Each year, the event raises money for the Orion Oxford Optimist Club and the high school's 3D drug prevention program. High school students began their trek on Friday evening. Middle school students joined in at 6 a.m. on Saturday. Any money raised above and beyond the registration fee is kept by the organization represented by the team. The event was moved back to the athletic field after 1 year in front of the old high school.
Well, we're back on the football field probably for the last year because we're going to have a new one, and it's fine with us. My hope is next year when somebody else chairs this, it'll be a community activity, so we might be at the township or someplace in the community. I think that'd be a very good move. A lot of rules have changed. Our kids have never been bad. They've never done anything that has made us feel like we need to have more rules. But we have asked the parents to be a part of this. And so in a team, if it's mixed between boys and girls, we are mandating a male and female chaperone at all times and separate tents, which we've always had. The other thing is the equipment and the activities are incredible. We have a rock climbing wall. Wow. We have obstacle course coming in, a race car series program. I mean, we've got some really neat entertainment. We're totally going to be able to be in this area. I think we're going to be bonded closer.
On Friday, October 16th, the Lake Orion School District broke ground on 2 pieces of land. On property located on Weber Elementary School grounds, officials broke ground on a nature center. Originally, Orion Oaks County Park was considered as a site for the center, but all involved agreed the nature center would complement Weber's already existing nature area. When completed, the nature center will benefit all students within the Lake Orion School District.
We see this as an opportunity for all students K-12 throughout the district. There will be specific curriculum for all grade levels, and our goal in the long run is that all students, regardless of age, regardless of what school is their home school or the school they're attending, would still have an opportunity to come to our nature center and have hands-on science experiences. Mm-hmm. And as you're probably aware, Mr. Bass believes very strongly in having our buildings available to community at all times. So I think we'll have a lot of evening activities and possibly some weekend activities for the greater community, and maybe some courses we could offer specific to what we have at that center.
Later that same day, the same group of dignitaries moved over to a parcel of land located on Indianwood Road, this time to break ground on Lake Orion's newest elementary school. Approved during the same bond election that made the Nature Center possible, the new elementary school will help alleviate the crowding of Lake Orion's existing schools due to the area's tremendous growth. Pine Tree Elementary School Principal Beverly Tepper was named principal of the new school by the Board of Education. As principal, she heads up a committee made up of parents, staff, teachers, and architects who have designed the layout of the school. Construction will begin in the spring of '99.
The role of the committee is exactly that. It's designing the new school, it's planning the type of program delivery system that we want. One of the things that we knew immediately is that our neighborhood schools were overcrowded. So we knew that we wanted to make it a neighborhood school. And we did have representation from every elementary in the district. So we could really discuss that. And we really felt that would be the best thing. So there will be a redistricting process. But the delivery system, that has not officially been decided yet.
Just prior to the start of the Board of Education's October 28th study session, teachers from each of the Lake Orion schools were called up to be recognized. Board President Richard White handed out certificates to each teacher nominated to represent the district as Teacher of the Year. Rising above her peers was Carpenter Elementary School teacher Patty LaRue, chosen to represent the district in future state and national competitions.
Oh, I was thrilled to be chosen, and I love the staff that I teach with and our leadership and everything. So that was a huge honor just to be chosen to represent Carpenter.
And then they contacted you and told you that you were the overall winner. That must have just been overwhelming.
It was a huge surprise. They came and surprised me at school, and my parents and husband were able to be there, and so it's a huge honor, and I'm just very thrilled.
Patty LaRue is truly a superior teacher. She does such a wonderful job in the classroom, which is important and which, quite honestly, all the teachers at Carpenter do. But the thing that's extra special about Patty is that she truly cares. She cares to the very core of her soul about each and every one of her children. She cares not just about them as a student, but as a person, the entire child. And what's more, each and every one of her children know how much she cares.
On Sunday, November 1st, school officials, board members, students, and members of the community gathered together for a ceremony to officially dedicate Lake Orion's brand new natatorium. The building houses 2 pools that are not only used by the high school's competitive swimming and diving teams, but have also been opened up to the community for recreational swimming and lessons. Assistant Superintendent Leroy Mayberry was the master of ceremonies.
Today, to me, was almost like you call a historical event. Lake Orion has never had a swimming pool or natatorium, and we consider this historical in the sense it's the first, and it's the community as well as a school facility. And we expect that this is the kind of facility the community is going to be proud of, and it's going to be here for the next 100 years. It's not something that you build and it starts falling apart in 5-10 years. We feel we have a quality program, a quality facility, and we try to do what the community asked us to do. And so we think that this is something that forever will change Lake Orion, especially as far as the winter months are concerned.
Cutting the ceremonial ribbon was Mark Maudlin, the man who was instrumental in drumming up support for a community pool after voters defeated a proposal in September of 1994 by 900 votes. Voters changed their minds during a special election on February 26, 1996.
I haven't been in here until today, and it is just fantastic. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be this huge. I just didn't think so. I knew some idea, but this is so much better than what I've ever swam in my whole life, indoors and or out for that matter. This is just fabulous. I'm itching to get in.
What did it mean to you to be here as a part of the ceremony to actually cut the ribbon?
Oh, that was the icing on the cake. I made sure I got in touch with Kathy Selena in Colorado, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to email some of this stuff to her and let her get a dose of what I'm experiencing. I'm sure she'll be tickled too. It was just fantastic.
Tuesday, November 3rd was Election Day. According to the numbers from Oakland County's Elections Office, John Engler's tally almost doubled that of Jeffrey Feiger's, allowing Engler to serve as Michigan's governor for another term. Candace Miller was reelected as Secretary of State. Incumbent Dale Kildee was challenged by Republican Tom McMillan to represent the 9th District in Congress. Kildee was defeated in Oakland County, but garnered enough votes in Genesee and Lapeer counties to get reelected to that position. Matt Danaskis was chosen by voters to continue to represent the 16th District in the state Senate, and Mike Bishop soundly defeated Margaret Zandy to represent the 45th District in the state legislature. Wednesday, November 11th was Veterans Day. Local dignitaries marked the day by unveiling the site plan to the Orion War Memorial located at M24 in Odana. Proposed is a pathway to peace made up of bricks engraved with the names of area veterans. A proposed amphitheater will house future memorial ceremonies, and the main monument will be 15 feet tall with an eagle perched upon it. On the evening of November 11th, the Lake Orion Board of Education met for their regular business meeting. Among items on their agenda, board members discussed the district's service learning requirement. Board member Leanne Bartley, representing the district's Service Learning Board, announced publicly that the district was facing a dilemma. Only a small percentage of LOHS seniors had successfully completed the service learning requirement necessary to graduate. With the deadline quickly approaching, the possibility existed that hundreds of students wouldn't graduate in June. The following day, the Service Learning Board met at the high school. Career Center Coordinator Kim Crawford told us that at the time, only 136 students had successfully completed the requirements.
Basically, on January 20th, 1999, our seniors are required to turn in their 40 service learning hours, which they've had 3.5 years to accomplish this. There's a 500-word essay where they write about one of the sites that they visited and volunteered for time at. They've got a site evaluation that's due. And we do have some students that have not either accomplished the hours yet or possibly just not turned them in. A lot of the students that I've talked to, they've gone out in the community, they've done the service, they just haven't turned the forms in to be recorded for a matter of record.
Crawford has since resigned from her position. On Thursday, November 12th, those praying for a nearby source of retail shopping finally had their prayers answered when the Great Lakes Crossing Shopping Center officially opened its doors to the public. Leading the media tour around the center's mile-long oval was Robert Taubman, president and CEO for Taubman Centers, the developer of Great Lakes Crossing. In addition to showing off the variety of businesses that opened that morning, he also pointed out features of the shopping center that he told us captures the essence of Michigan. In the food court, the public was invited to attend the grand opening ceremony hosted by Miss Michigan Laura Welling. And at 10 a.m., Robert Taubman spoke the words the anxious crowd wanted to hear.
It's a great new opportunity for all the people that live in this area to have a new retailing and entertainment venue for them to come to and enjoy. And I mean, it's not often that something like this opens up in your neighborhood with 30 different food establishments and 200 stores, and most of them, a lot of them unique to Michigan. We have almost 70 stores that are unique to Michigan. So I think it's a terrific, wonderful opportunity for people to enjoy themselves in a different way and interact with the community and see their neighbors and see their friends and have a new place to go.
On Saturday, November 21st, the Chamber of Commerce held its annual beautification ball and award ceremony at Paint Creek Country Club. Event Chair Rosemary McBride emceed the event, handing out awards to honorees in 7 categories. And the award for Citizen of the Year was given to 2 worthy individuals, Lake Orion Community Schools' Lisa Sokol and the Chamber's own President and Village Council President Carl Sorowski. Also in November, the Lake Orion varsity football squad made its dramatic bid for a state championship. After finishing its regular season with only 1 loss and a division title, the Dragons faced the Monroe Trojans in the first round of playoffs. With a 21-22 win, the Dragons advanced to take on the Brighton Bulldogs. To begin the 4th quarter, Thule hit a wide-open John Garcia to break a 14-14 tie. The Dragons went on to win 26-14, and after the game, Superintendent Robert Bass and Athletic Director Jim Wood presented the team's captains with the Class AA Regional Championship Trophy. On November 21st, the team traveled to Lansing Everett High School to take on the Rockford Rams in the state semifinals. And unfortunately, that's where the Dragons' quest for a state championship came to an end. The Dragons were defeated by the Rams 48-7.
On December 5th, the holiday season was officially ushered in with Lake Orion's nighttime Christmas parade. After sunset, thousands of spectators lined the streets in the village for the start of the parade. Unusually warm weather may have played a part in the bringing out of the largest crowd in recent history. For the first time ever, the parade made a right at Flint Street to take participants out onto M24. Citizen of the Year Carl Sorowski was the parade Grand Marshal. He was joined by Honorary Grand Marshal Dina Centofanti from Fox 2 News.
Well, I felt like the prom queen that I never was. It was great, waving, and really everybody was so nice. And I love to come to small town parades because everyone comes out on their front lawns, and it's really fun. And the kids are so cute. It's a great way to kick off the holiday season.
Those were many of the stories covered by News 65 in 1998.
But by no means all of the stories that took place in Lake Orion in 1998. We just tried to focus on most of the positive stories that took place during the year. Kim, what would you say overall was the biggest story of the year?
Probably everything that's happening with our government right now.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to agree. Even though for me, I think I'll look back at 1998 as the year that Mark McGuire broke the 70, or set the record with 70 home runs during the year. I think that when all is said and done, I think people are going to look back at the positive and reflect back as how that kind of brought the country together, and we all kind of rallied around him. So that was kind of a fond memory during the year. So with that, we will wrap up this edition of News 65, and we will see you in 2 weeks with our next regular edition of News 65. Good night.
Good night.